Up to $1 a gallon.
It's easy to save on fuel at Kroger.
Kroger, low prices plus more.
As to the charge of first-degree murder, we, the jury, find the defendant not guilty. So say we all. Dated at Orlando.
Welcome back to Good Date. It is the verdict everyone is talking about. This morning, criminal defense attorney and former federal and state prosecutor John Teakell joins us with his take on the Casey Anthony verdict. Good morning, John.
Good morning.
Were you as surprised as most everybody else?
I wasn't as surprised as some of the pundits, some of the reporters, and some of the general public are talking about, because I think it comes down to the burden of proof that the state had and their lack of evidence really tying the defendant to the crime.
Well, yeah, let me ask you about that, because we've had a lot of postings on our Facebook page this morning. A couple of viewers, several viewers actually, supporting the verdict. One woman said, hey, we still haven't heard any actual proof she did it. She's guilty of something, but what? And another viewer, our system says there must be proof. There was none. And what this case rested on was circumstantial evidence as opposed to direct evidence, right?
Well, that's very true. You know, keep in mind, in a criminal case, unlike a civil case, the burden of proof is the highest in our justice system. It's beyond a reasonable doubt. Although there are a number of suspicious activities that tied back to the defendant, beyond that, there seemed to be nothing more that really tied her to the death.
For example, it would have helped the prosecution if they had, you know, Casey Anthony's DNA on the duct tape, but that kind of direct evidence was not available.
Exactly, or someone who had seen her about the estimated time of death with the child or in a suspicious activity with the child.
So give me your opinion of the overall prosecution. How did they do?
Well, I'm not faulting the prosecution from what I understand of the case, but a lot of times prosecutors are faced with somewhat of a dilemma in these types of situations, because they're wanting to build as strong a case as they can, but then they have to decide, do I wait longer, do I keep investigating and find more, or do we end up going with what we have because we have to go forward with the prosecution because of the nature of the crime?
And how about the defense? They were criticized for some of their tactics and strategy, and yet the verdict.
Well, as the defense counsel in this case, as we all saw, he kept pounding at the lack of evidence, but also the reasonable doubt. There was a lot of reasonable doubt because, as we talked about, there was not direct evidence tying the defendant to the death, because the state couldn't even establish when or how the death occurred.
Okay, she was convicted, Casey, of 4 counts of lying to investigators. Do you see her, being released tomorrow for time served?
I don't know if she's going to be released tomorrow, but I would imagine in the relatively near future, given the fact that she's been in custody for some time, that's probably going to, the time she's already spent is probably going to be credited to most of the sentence that she receives.
There are lots of people who are unhappy with this verdict. Does it raise, and they're going to say it raises questions about our system of justice in this country. Do you relate to that sense of frustration that people have, or do you feel like, hey, the system worked?
Well, I do relate to the sense of frustration that people have, because there are a lot of things that just weren't right and were very suspicious on behalf on the part of the defendant. However, and I've also heard people comparing this to O.J. Simpson. I see a difference between this and the Simpson case. In my opinion, the Simpson prosecution had a lot of direct evidence and had a good case against him, where the jury just apparently disregarded that evidence. Yeah. Here, they had circumstantial evidence at best.
All right. John Teakell, defense attorney, former prosecutor. We sure appreciate your insights this morning.
Thank you.
Still ahead on this edition of Good Day, the Dallas Mavericks are still celebrating their championship, and we will talk with GM Donnie Nelson about the win and how you can see the trophy in person. Yes, that piece of hardware right there, how you can see it in person this weekend. Plus, triple-digit heat.